Your ride-hailing order is complete. I pressed the confirmation button and watched the two of them, tightly holding onto each other, stumble into the elevator. My wife couldn't recognize me with my newly grown beard, and the man didn't recognize his most trusted business partner. This ride-hailing job had been 2 years in the making. ####01. I pressed the confirmation button and watched the two of them stumble into the elevator, arms wrapped tightly around each other. The opulent lobby of the Hyatt Hotel gleamed in gold and crystal, while my cap, part of the uniform for ride-hailing drivers, shielded my face in shadow. My wife, Emily Lynn, couldn't recognize me with my beard, nor could she identify my gray ride-hailing uniform or my deliberately muffled voice. She clung to Kevin Sue, wobbling on her stiletto heels, laughing in a high-pitched, giddy manner. I lowered my head and gave this ride-hailing order a 5-star rating. The notification sound marking the end of the order chimed twice. My phone screen dimmed, reflecting my calm expression. This was already the 6th time I had driven them. It took me 3 months to move from shock and rage to this current state of calm. In those 3 months, I grew a beard and blended myself into the gray-clad ranks of ride-hailing drivers, traversing the city day after day. I knew every shortcut in this city, just as I knew every habit of Emily Lynn S. For instance, I knew she always giggled when drunk. I knew she unconsciously leaned on men. I knew that when she said she was working late, her gaze would always flicker. As a driver, I had seen countless drunk people. Some drank to drown their sorrows, others reveled in joy. But I had never seen anyone like Emily Lynn committing betrayal with such apparent delight. I raised my eyes to the elevator numbers, which stopped at the 18th floor. Room 1808. I memorized it silently. It wasn't the first time I'd taken note of that number. My phone suddenly vibrated. "Honey, I have a last-minute work dinner tonight. I might be back very late." I glanced at my phone, then back at the elevator numbers frozen on the 18th floor, and a cold smile crept across my lips. What gave her the audacity to lie in another man's arms while texting her husband with such a message? "Okay, take care," I replied. A textbook perfect response from the ideal husband, the same role I had played throughout our 5 years together, including 3 years of marriage. I stepped out of the hotel. The wind at 3 a.m. was chilly. Nearby street food vendors were still open, the aroma of grilled skewers mingling with the scent of beer wafting through the air. 3 months ago, I had been at this very spot when I first saw them staggering into the hotel. Back then, I had nearly stormed in to confront them. In hindsight, it's a good thing I didn't. Revenge is best served slowly. Now, I had dozens of recordings, hundreds of photos, and a comprehensive record of their hotel stays. I knew every time and place they met, every gift Kevin had given her, and even the exact date of their first night together. All of this, meticulously documented. Through the ride-hailing platform, I had flagged Kevin Sue's profile. Anytime he requested a driver, the order would be routed to me first. He was a heavy drinker, frequently requiring a ride, and I had become the most familiar stranger in his life. I glanced at my phone and swiped across the screen. "Come back soon," I added to my message. Far-off neon lights blurred on the rain-slick streets, like teardrops smudging a lens. But my eyes were dry. The ride-hailing app chimed with a new order. I checked the time, declined it, and drove home. The house remained unchanged. Her cosmetics cluttered the vanity, our clothes still hung together in the wardrobe. The bedsheets, her favorite shade of lavender, remained untouched. I left everything as it was, waiting for her to crumble under the weight of her guilt. She needed to understand the cost of betrayal. ####03. At 8 p.m., I received Kevin Sue's ride-hailing request right on time. Outside the bar, he was holding Emily Lynn, staggering as they walked out. She had dressed up tonight in a black slip dress that exposed her fair skin. That dress was the anniversary gift I had given her last year. "Driver, to the Hyatt Hotel," Emily said, slurring slightly as she hiccuped from the alcohol. What an irony. She couldn't even remember that today was our wedding anniversary. "Sure," I replied in a low voice. As the car drove into the night, the rearview mirror showed Emily slumped against Kevin's chest. His hands wandered over her waist, occasionally leaning in to whisper something in her ear. "Kevin," she cooed softly. I kept my face expressionless as I drove. My phone buzzed with a message from Jack, the platform manager. "Everything's ready. Room 1808 has been fitted with cameras." When they reached the room, Kevin impatiently urged Emily toward the bathroom. Go take a bath first. Wait a minute, I interrupted suddenly. They both turned to look at me. I removed my cap, revealing my face. Long time no see, dear wife. Emily sobered instantly, her face turning ashen. Honey. Happy anniversary, I said with a cold smile, pulling out a neatly wrapped gift box. How fitting your good brother is here to celebrate with you. Chris Moore, you Kevin stammered, caught off guard. I opened the gift box, revealing photos, videos, and records of their clandestine meetings over the past few months. 3 years of marriage, 5 years together, is that all it's worth to you? Emily dropped to her knees with a thud. Honey, I was wrong. Please, let me explain. Explain. I sneered. Explain how you made out with him in the back seat while I was driving. Or explain why you chose our wedding anniversary to cheat. Chris, it's all my fault, Kevin tried to mediate. Blame me if you want. Blame you. Beat you. I shook my head. That would be too boring. I pulled out my phone and opened a live stream interface. At that moment, everything happening in their hotel room was being broadcast live online. You're insane. Emily shrieked. Insane. I turned off the stream. I just wanted you to experience what public disgrace feels like. Kevin, enraged, lunged toward me, but the door opened, and Jack walked in with a few men. Calm down, brother, Jack said, holding Kevin back. Breaking into someone else's home will land you in jail. You. Mr. Sue, I said coolly. You're a man of some stature. Don't let these videos leak. Especially since your company's recent project wouldn't withstand an investigation, would it? Kevin's face turned pale. I turned to Emily. Don't worry. I won't release the videos. But what? She sobbed. The divorce papers are ready. Tomorrow, we'll go to the registry office. You'll voluntarily relinquish all our assets. If not, these will go straight to your hotel and his company. Emily collapsed onto the floor, defeated. I turned and walked out of the room, her cries of honey echoing behind me. Her voice, like a dull, rusted blade, could no longer pierce my heart. In the elevator, Jack hesitated before speaking. Is that it? Of course not, I replied, pulling out my phone. This is just the beginning. On the screen was the contact number for Emily's parents. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Lin. I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but there is something you should know. ####04. By dawn, Emily's mother had called me 23 times. Standing on the balcony, I smoked a cigarette, gazing down at Emily curled up on the steps below. She had been sitting there all night, her dress soaked with dew. My phone vibrated with a message from Jack. Brother, the hotel matter has been taken care of. The Hyatt, the city's most prestigious hotel, avoided scandals like the plague. Emily, as the front desk manager, had naturally been suspended. Thanks, I replied. You're ruthless, Jack wrote back. 3 years of marriage, though. I didn't respond and opened my photo gallery. 3 years. 1,095 days and nights. I remembered every birthday wish she made, every time I waited for her outside her office during late nights, even her favorite bubble tea shop. But what about her? Chris, her weak voice called from below. I stubbed out the cigarette, packed my belongings, and began to leave. Most of the furniture was from when we were newlyweds. She could keep it all. Seeing me carry my suitcase, Emily stumbled toward me, pleading. Please forgive me. Forgive you? I laughed bitterly. Do you know how I spent the past 3 months? Watching you cheat right in front of me, making out in the back seat, indulging yourselves in room 1808. She trembled uncontrollably. Stop. I'm just a driver. A lowly driver, I said evenly. That's why you never gave me a second glance, isn't it? No, that's not it. Then tell me why. What did I do to deserve this? I stared into her eyes. What did I do wrong? She bit her lip, unable to answer. Because he's wealthy. Because I'm just a driver. Or because you thought I'd never find out. I wasn't thinking clearly, she sobbed. Chris, please, give me another chance. A chance? I chuckled coldly. Did you ever give me one? I handed her the divorce agreement. Sign it. Don't worry, I won't take a penny of the assets. And the videos? Relax. They won't be leaked. I turned to leave. Unlike you, I still understand the meaning of keeping a promise. She clung to my leg, wailing. Please. At that moment, a car pulled up, and Emily's mother rushed out. You disgrace. Her mother slapped Emily hard. How could you do this to Chris? Emily was stunned, frozen in place. Mom. Don't call me Mom. Her mother sobbed uncontrollably. Your father had a heart attack and is in the hospital after finding out. I quietly stood to the side. Chris, her mother grabbed my hand. It's my fault for not raising her right. You. Auntie, I gently pulled my hand away. Please take care of Uncle. As I walked away, I heard Emily's mother's furious reprimands and Emily's wails. But those voices no longer had anything to do with me. Driving far away, I glanced at my phone's screen. Jack had sent me a video Kevin Sue kneeling before his mother, begging for forgiveness. 05. At 4 a.m., I was sitting alone in Jack's ride-hailing company office. You're not heading home this late? Jack asked, bringing over 2 bottles of liquor. The first time he met Emily was at this hour. I picked up a bottle, recalling how I had just finished a ride and saw her getting off from work at the Hyatt Hotel, wearing her uniform. Jack sat down across from me. What happened next? Later, she said it was late and asked for a ride. I smiled, took a swig of the alcohol. At that time, she was just starting her internship at the hotel. I saw a young girl out so late and let her get in the car. You're too soft-hearted. Yeah. I stared at the bottle. She told me she wanted to be a front desk manager, so I helped her train while I worked my rides. She said she wanted to buy designer bags, so I picked up more night shifts to afford it. Jack sighed. And now? What's next? What's going on with Kevin Sue? I asked, not answering his question. You really are ruthless, Jack shook his head. His mother made a scene at the company, and he'll be packing up by the end of the month. I took another drink. He deserves it. Have you checked when they started this affair? I opened my phone's memo. November 26th last year. My mother was in the hospital, and I went home to take care of her. At that time, he had just come to the hotel to discuss business. In the memo, I had recorded every one of their meetings. Each entry felt like a knife, carving into my heart. You stuck around in this ride-hailing job just to wait for this moment. I nodded. This job is the best cover. No one looks twice at a driver, and they certainly don't suspect anything. Suddenly, Jack became serious. Brother, there's a job I'm not sure if you want to take. What job? There's a rich woman who wants to investigate her husband. The price is $500,000. I was taken aback. You think I've become a pro? Why else would you handle things so well? Jack laughed. Not to mention, you're free now. I shook my head. No. Why not? I grabbed the divorce papers from the table. One job like that is enough. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Emily. Honey, I'm downstairs. Could you open the door? Jack grabbed my phone and glanced at it. She's not drunk, is she? I stood up. I'll go check. Downstairs, Emily was leaning unsteadily against the wall. When she saw me, she stumbled toward me. Honey, she reeked of alcohol. I took a step back. Why didn't you answer my calls? She wobbled, about to fall. I instinctively reached out to steady her. She seized the opportunity and hugged me tightly. I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong. I let her hold me. My dad is still in the hospital. My mom doesn't acknowledge me anymore. Kevin doesn't want me, she sobbed. I really regret it. Listening to her, I suddenly felt it was all so ridiculous. So, you came to me because he doesn't want you anymore. Her whole body froze. Do you know, I said softly, I've been wondering how we ended up like this. She looked up at me, her eyes full of tears. Maybe I should have never let you in the car in the first place. 06. At 5 a.m., I drove the drunk Emily back to her apartment. Her place was in an old neighborhood, and I knew every corner of it. 3 years ago, I had pushed her bicycle here, watching countless sunrises with her. Don't leave. She grabbed the hem of my shirt. I silently watched her. The moonlight shone through the window, reminding me of so many nights like this. Back then, she would curl up in my arms, making promises to be together forever. Why? I suddenly asked. She froze. Why did you sleep with him? The first time, weren't you afraid I'd find out? She bit her lip and stayed silent. Do you remember last year when my mom was in the hospital? I continued. While I was taking care of her in the hospital, what were you doing? Enough. She covered her ears. That day was November 26th. You and he booked a room for the first time. The hotel records show you used the name Zhong Xiaocheng. She trembled. How do you know? Because I'm a driver. I smiled. That night, I drove you both to the Hyatt. She jerked her head up. Don't remember. I continued. That night, you were so drunk, kissing him in the front seat. Later, you two did it so many more times. I remember every detail. I pulled out my phone, opening the memos. On December 3rd, you said you were going shopping, but you were actually at the hot springs with him. On December 15th, you said you were working overtime, but you were with him meeting clients. Stop it. She screamed, breaking down. I put the phone away. Do you know why I became a ride-hailing driver? She looked at me in fear. Because only this way could I document every detail of your affairs. Every time, every place, I remember it all clearly. You're terrifying. She backed away. Terrifying. I smiled. I think it's kind of interesting. By day, I pretend to be the clueless husband, and by night, I watch you both in the shadows. You're crazy. You're insane. She screamed. I didn't speak, turning to leave. Wait. She suddenly threw herself at my legs. Honey, I really know I was wrong. Please, give me a chance. I looked down at her. Didn't you just say I was scary? I was drunk, she sobbed. Please forgive me. Let us start over. Start over. I crouched down and gently caressed her face. Then tell me, do you love me, or do you love my forgiveness? She froze. Emily Lynn, you can't tell the difference between love and guilt. I stood up. Just like you can't tell the difference between love and desire. But it doesn't matter, I interrupted her. Soon, you won't need to tell the difference anymore. I tossed a document onto the floor. What's this? It's the engagement invitation between Kevin Sue and his fiancée. I turned to leave. Next Saturday, Hyatt Hotel. Behind me, I heard something shattering. I knew. She had finally cracked. Just like I did, once upon a time. 07. Kevin Sue's engagement party was held as scheduled. I was wearing my ride-hailing uniform, standing in a corner of the hotel lobby. The bride was the daughter of a listed company's owner, and the engagement party was incredibly extravagant. So, you really plan on watching the show? Jack asked, standing beside me. I didn't respond, just kept my eyes fixed on the banquet hall. Emily was there, I knew she would come. Sure enough, a brightly dressed figure stumbled toward the banquet hall. Stop her, I told Jack. Jack signaled, and 2 security guards immediately approached. Sorry, miss, could you please show the invitation? Get out of my way. Emily shoved the security guard aside. Kevin Sue. Get out here. The music in the banquet hall abruptly stopped, and everyone turned to look at the door. Kevin's face turned pale as he rushed out. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? Emily sneered. You're the father of the child in my womb. How could I not come on such an important day? A stir spread through the crowd. I chuckled softly from my corner. This scene was exactly as I had anticipated. 3 days ago, I had Jack casually leak the news of Kevin's engagement to Emily. At the same time, I had someone accidentally drop a pregnancy test stick in front of her door. You're lying. Kevin's face turned ashen. Lying. Emily sneered. Should I release the video from room 1808? Security. Kevin panicked. Throw her out. You dare. Emily struggled. Didn't you say you loved me? Didn't you say you would take responsibility for me? Now you want to back out? The bride's family was furious. Kevin Sue, what's going on here? Auntie, don't listen to her, she's crazy. Crazy? Emily laughed maniacally. Then why don't you tell them how many times we've been together these past 2 months? Every time, what did you say? Kevin's mother rushed up. You slut. A slut. Emily didn't dodge, standing her ground. Then what's your son? Why didn't you call him a slut when he played with someone's emotions? Come here. The family screamed. Throw this shameless woman out. Several security guards stepped forward, and Emily struggled desperately. Kevin. You'll get what you deserve. You've ruined my life, I curse you. As I watched her being dragged away, I quietly recorded the video from the corner. Was this your setup? Jack asked. I shook my head. No, it was her choice. The party turned into a farce. The bride's family immediately called off the engagement, and Kevin knelt on the ground, begging for forgiveness. I looked at the video I had just recorded on my phone and sent it to the chairman of Kevin's company. It was time to reel him in. The next day, Kevin was fired from the company for misconduct. His fiancée also issued a statement, saying the engagement had been broken off. As for Emily, I heard her family had sent her to a psychiatric hospital. You really are ruthless. Jack sighed. You've plotted every step so perfectly. I put my phone away. This game is over. Where are you going? To another city. I gazed out the window. Start over. 08. She's pregnant. Jack suddenly said. I was packing up the things from the ride-hailing company, my hand pausing for a moment. Yeah. Don't you want to know who the father is? I neatly folded my uniform and placed it into a cardboard box. Does it still matter? 2 days ago, Emily's mother came to see me, Jack continued. She said Emily was diagnosed with severe depression at the psychiatric hospital and is 3 months pregnant. The doctor said her emotions were too unstable, and she might not be able to keep the baby. If you really hate her, why not just release the video? Jack handed me a cigarette. Why go to such lengths to drive her crazy step by step? I took the cigarette but didn't light it. Because I promised not to let the video leak. But what you did was worse than releasing the video. I smiled faintly. Yeah, I made her cause a scene at the engagement party and let everyone see her go mad. That's far worse than the damage the video would have caused. You know, I put the cigarette back in the box, the one thing she cared about most was face. Since we got married, she's always complained that I was a ride-hailing driver, never willing to mention my job in front of her colleagues. So I let everyone see what kind of person she really is. I said softly. Let her live in everyone's contempt forever. Jack sighed. You young people. Ding. My phone received a message. It was from Emily's mother. MOMO, the doctor said she's going to have an abortion. I stared at the screen, thinking of the many nights we had spent together. Back then, she always said she wanted to have a son for me, to have the child carry my surname. Are you going to see her? Jack asked. I shook my head and deleted the message. She doesn't deserve it. That night, I dreamt of the first time I met her. She was wearing a hotel uniform, waving at me under the streetlight. Driver, can I get a ride? When I woke up, I realized my pillow was wet. Not because of heartbreak, but because I hated how foolish I was back then. The next day, I sent a resignation notice in the ride-hailing driver group. The group exploded. Old Chen is leaving. Why? We'll miss you, bro. I replied to each message, saying I was going to start over in a new city. Before I left, Jack pulled me aside for one last drink. Really not going to reconsider? He asked. You've done well in this business. I shook my head. It's time to end it. These 3 months as a ride-hailing driver were just a backdrop for my revenge. Now that the play is over, it's time for me to leave. I wish you all the best, Jack said, raising his glass. I clinked glasses with him and downed the drink. When I finished packing up, it was already dark. Outside the company building, I took one last look at the night view of the city. 3 years of love, 3 months of revenge, everything was over. Jack said I was ruthless. But honestly, I just didn't want to regret it anymore. Just like I regretted letting her into my life in the first place. 09. Did you see the news? Jack called. I was standing on the balcony in Shenzhen, watching the cars below. Kevin Su jumped off a building. The reason was simple: I had sent the evidence of him embezzling company funds to the police. All this evidence was collected bit by bit while I worked as a ride-hailing driver. In the recordings, he boasted about how he invented false claims to line his own pockets, how he used his position to accept bribes. All of it was recorded word for word using the ride-hailing platform's audio equipment. You knew there was something wrong with him all along? Jack asked. The first time I drove him, he was talking on the phone about a project, I said calmly. Later, I checked on the projects he was in charge of and found that the fund flows had issues. This was my final trump card. Not a video, not a scandal, but his career and his freedom, the things he cared about most. He signed the confession letter. Jack said. At least 10 years in prison. I smiled faintly. He deserves it. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Emily had a miscarriage. My hand froze for a second. She's gone mad. Jack continued. She sits in the hospital garden all day, talking to the air. I stared out at the neon lights in the distance, not saying anything. If you had just called the police and sent Kevin to prison back then, she wouldn't. She would have hated me even more. I interrupted him. You don't understand her. She never cared about right or wrong, only about face. Letting her reputation fall apart is far more painful for her than sending her to jail. Jack sighed. So you found out about Kevin's issues, but you waited until now to report him. I wanted her to watch with her own eyes what kind of person her white knight really was. I said in a calm voice. I wanted her to know what she destroyed her marriage for. After hanging up, I opened my computer. On the screen was a resignation letter. I decided to quit the ride-hailing job. Over these 3 months, I had learned a lot. I had learned to hide, to wait, and to let go. Emily's collapse wasn't my goal, it was the result of her own actions. She thought Kevin was her salvation, but she didn't realize he was just a liar. I packed my luggage and booked a flight to Shanghai for the day after tomorrow. Before leaving, I sent Emily's mother one final message: take good care of her. Forget about me. This time, I was truly leaving. Not to escape, but for a new beginning. Once, I thought loving someone meant giving them the best. Now I understand that the most important thing is to love yourself. And the best revenge is not to destroy others, but to rebuild yourself. 10. In the late-night office, I was sorting through the memories of the past 3 years. Like cleaning up computer files, I labeled each memory, categorized them, and then deleted them. Ding, my phone received a message. It was from Jack. Emily ran away from the hospital. I set my coffee cup down. Did you find her? Found her. She's at the milk tea shop you used to go to. I glanced at the time, 3 a.m. That shop should be closed by now. She's sitting outside, saying she's waiting for you to pick her up after work. Jack said. The doctor said she's living in the past, from 3 years ago. I shut my computer and walked to the window. The night view of Shenzhen was much like the city itself, neon lights flashing, cars rushing by. Do you need me to do anything? I asked. Emily's mother wants you to go see her. I remained silent. After a long pause, I replied, take good care of her for me. Is this the result you wanted? I looked out the window. This isn't the result I wanted. It's her own choice. I put my phone down and opened my notebook. Inside, it recorded every step of the past 3 months, every step executed perfectly, like a carefully designed game of chess. But did I win? On my desk was a housing contract. An apartment in Shanghai. This was my new beginning. New city, new job, new life. Boss, this report needs your review. The assistant knocked and entered. I closed my notebook. Leave it here. Dressed in a suit, my reflection was visible in the office's glass window. Who could have imagined that the former ride-hailing driver was now the risk management director at an investment firm? Life is always ironic. Back then, Emily thought I was just a ride-hailing driver. Now, I'm standing at a higher position than Kevin. But it no longer matters. What matters is that I finally understand the best revenge is not about destroying others, but about remaking myself. I picked up my phone and deleted the last conversation with Jack. Like deleting a virus, code clean and decisive. 11. 5 years later. Sir, your ride-hailing driver has arrived. The hotel lobby manager said respectfully. I put down my glass of red wine and glanced at the phone's map. It was an unfamiliar ride-hailing driver, which made me feel a little disoriented. 5 years. It was the first time I had gotten drunk, the first time I called for a ride-hailing driver. I walked out of the hotel, and a familiar figure made me stop in my tracks. It was Emily. She was wearing the hotel uniform, bowing goodbye to a guest. No longer the front desk manager, just an ordinary service staff. Our gazes met in the air. She froze, then hurriedly lowered her head. I walked past her without stopping, but I knew she was watching me, just like back then when I hid beneath the cap of my ride-hailing uniform, watching her. Sir, where to? The ride-hailing driver asked. I gave him the hotel name and leaned back in the seat, closing my eyes. My phone vibrated. It was from Jack. She's been working there for almost a year now. I heard she waits outside every day, saying she's waiting for a ride-hailing driver. I stared at the neon lights flashing outside. Is she okay? She's recovering pretty well. Jack said. But what? She doesn't have a good memory. She often mistakes the current customers for you. I smiled faintly. Well, that's good. Have you really let go? I gazed at the road ahead. Life is long. Why live in the past? The car traveled through Shenzhen's night. I thought back to that night 5 years ago, same neon lights, same night sky. The car stopped at a red light. I saw a young couple waiting for a ride by the side of the road. The girl was wearing a hotel uniform, and the boy was in a ride-hailing driver's uniform. In that instant, it felt like time had reversed. Back then, we were standing under the streetlight, looking forward to the future. Green light, sir. The ride-hailing driver reminded me. I snapped back to reality. Please stop at the next intersection. As I got out of the car, I looked back at the hotel. Emily was still standing there, like a statue. I pulled out my phone and sent Jack one last message: take good care of her. This time, I'm really leaving. Once, I had used all my energy to hate someone. Now, I'm using all my energy to love myself.